So a few years ago, we spoke about family members being gang stalkers and how that's the worst form of the process of going through gang stalking or cyberbullying or harassment. And, it was just laid on me that even though, you forgive them, there's consequences behind that. Because if things go unaddressed, they will be more persistent. And it was kind of, laid on me that this is something that has to be addressed because, experiencing it, it was kind of, it was, it's not something that you would think that families can do, but this is something that's done more frequent than not. And it hasn't been addressed on a wide scale. This is the reason why these type of things happen. And we have to elaborate on that right now because it it's it's a sensitive thing, especially when you can show people how easily people can be influenced or put themselves in a position to betray a family member, for financial gain or for status, success, or whatever it is. But, you know, that's um that's something we wanted to talk about because these things have to be addressed. And we we had a video where it was a short where we was telling you to forgive, to forgive everybody. And while forgiveness is, it's a divine quality, to err is human, to forgive is divine. So, forgiveness is of God, and we did have um this particular short
they had the knowledge of,
and we had Willow Ruth creation says forgiveness, yes, but it does not mean access or release from consequences, which, is actually true. Because if you release them from consequence, they wouldn't learn the valuable lesson that needs to be learned in the process of, the betrayal. And that is something that is required as far as people not understanding who or what they're doing. Forgive people because they know not what they do. You know, but my reply was, righteous. Some it will take 100 lifetimes to learn the lesson that need to be learned. Everybody don't learn at the same speed, or it may take many attempts for a person to actually get the lesson that they need to be learned. But you know, we we wanted to allow people to understand that certain actions are demonic, makes you a demon, you know, being opportunistic and being one that set traps for others, for personal gain out of greed, that makes a person a demon. And we tend to undermine that by pointing the fingers at other things that make people a demon and might say something else like, um if there's aliens, they are demons, and this is something that's common, especially in the religious world. If they believe that if people believe in aliens or strange things or strange beings, they are demons, as if humanity has not been proven to be demons, to have demonic qualities. And that's, goes into the movie, The Usual Suspects, where they said the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world that he didn't exist. First, they put a gender on the devil, he, the same way they put it on God, he, but it can be anybody, man, woman, and child, because they all have the spirit of humanity. So when we talk about spirits, we're not just thinking good spirits, but we have to be mindful of the bad spirits as well. And with that, you have people not knowing that they are demons and would point at other people as demons. Like, the other day I was speaking with somebody and they was calling people witches and or warlocks, and that's kind of common on the spiritual streets in YouTube. I guess that's what they call it, on the spiritual streets. And you know witches, to call somebody a witch or just to associate evil with witches alone, that attenuates or weakens the the definition or meaning of evilness or wickedness in people in general. They don't have to be practitioners of anything to be categorized as a wicked person, a evil person, a demonic person, an opportunistic person, a person that get over or try to get one over on the next person. It's not that, and that alleviates people from looking at the demon within themselves. So by us pointing fingers at others and just categorizing wickedness as this quality, and that person is a witch and that person is a warlock, they might not have any kind of magical abilities at all, and furthermore, our fascination with witches comes from King James. King James made it a thing to point fingers at people and persecute them and burn them at a stake or do all sorts of torturous things to them. So, and another thing about that, King James is not a holy nor righteous person. He became associated with God through deception. If y'all don't understand that, then maybe y'all need to go and find out about your boy, King James. But he's not one that can assume the authority nor role of anything associated with God just by the way that he became who he is. So we should let that be known. But that's where our fascination with witches come from King James, and how he mistakenly thought that something happened, so he pointed the fingers at witches and went on a witch hunt and put everybody else in a state of, if you don't like this person or if you got a problem with this person, they may be a suspected witch, then you put them on trial, and then after they put on trial, then you find them guilty of it, and then you do away with them. These are acts and crimes against humanity that to this day haven't been addressed, and they should be addressed by humanity. But humanity has um a thing about them that they refuse to acknowledge, and these are demonic qualities, or what you want to call sinful quality, their sinful nature. It goes unaddressed because they can simply hide behind things that makes them appear to not be demonic, and that is what it actually is. Because here, we'll show you, we'll show you here, you know we'll show you, you know we'll show you this, you know we'll show you, you know you know here we have it. This is humanity at its finest, of you know souls souls searching, These are people fishing for souls, whether they know it or not, but they want to see how common humanity is. So one of the questions posed is, if you were offered $875 million to sell a family member, what you doing? So this is a common question, and as you can see, it's not, it's common amongst humanity. And this is something that is a joke to humanity. It's a joke to humanity. But in common, everybody's common is that per family member. I sell them all except for my kids and grandkids. But what we have to understand is that we don't really care nothing about kids, because at one point in time we were kids. And when we were kids, we were horrible kids. Not, me per se, but I was amongst kids before when I was a kid, and I know that kids are horrible kids. So we have this illusion of protecting kids, and it is just something that's in us, that we think that it makes us a good person by protecting kids. It's like the Epstein files. People don't care nothing about the kids. They care about drama. Why? Because they have a demonic nature. They want to see people they want to see people suffer. They want to see Trump suffer. They want to see anybody that's listed on that trial suffer, not just because they was messing with kids or that there's kids involved, just because they have a natural tendency to want to see people in misery. Misery loves company. Miserable people want to see other people miserable. Not that they want justice, because once they stop talking about it, no one's going to talk about it. Because here we have the topic with 50 Cent and T.I. Now that's a trending topic. Now that's a topic of discussion until that blows over, and then we're back to the Epstein file. Now what's going on? Because people love drama. Why do they love drama? Because they love wrath. Why do they love wrath? Because they have demonic like tendencies and qualities in them that they haven't addressed. They simply haven't addressed and don't know how to address them. Why? It's because they're being influenced by wickedness. This is not wickedness. Look at how common this is. Look at how common. You don't see how common this is? No, you don't. This is not common. This is very common. If you were offered 860 million to sell a family member, what would you do? And she just want people to support my content by telling me, Malone, the one born right after my mother, the one born right after my mother. If you were my family, I would have started with you. No amount of money is worth life. Here we have one. Here we have a righteous person. Just the people in the world are wicked. Here we have one out of many. And we love to see that. The righteous loves to see that. I have been selling all my life, you know, but we love to see, those that are amongst the multitudes of people that come from out of the people, and these people get acknowledged, and these are the people that get the rewards of of the abundance. These are rich people. These are poor people. No amount of money can make you rich, you know. So, and that goes into, the family partaking in gang stalking, and they have vested themselves and set themselves up to do and carry out wicked acts against the righteous, against righteousness, because at no time is you agreeing to target, track and follow and set up traps or distraction traps or honey traps for individual, and can be associated with anything righteous, just, or godly at all. That's all in the realm of demonic. When one time I had gave my brother my phone, and this female had called him, like tried to get in contact with him, and I told him I didn't want anybody to contact me. I don't really want any distractions. Then he gave her my phone number, and I used to go to the store when he was up here. He would be one of the ones that ran out right after me. Maybe thinking that because I'm not one that understands that there's a big thing going on around me, that I wouldn't be aware of it. And when when you go to the store, you told people that people normally be in the store. That's a part of the places that the gang stalkers be at. Even with the woman asking the guy about Infraguard, when he told him that sometimes they set people up at stores and just to watch people. So I do know that when I walk past the stores, when he was up here staying with my mother, and I walked past her house, he would come out behind me, or if I'm coming from the store, he would be in, set himself up in position. And it was laid on me that um they were planning to take me out. They was planning, if they, maybe they still are, but those consequences are going to be very hefty and weighty on them. I'm like, yo, go ahead and see what the consequences are for that. I'm more than, you know I'm suggestive. Go ahead. And thinking that there's going to be some sort of hunky dory light at the end of the tunnel, or light at the end of the road for you. There's not. You're going to burn in hell, physically and spiritually. You're going to burn. No amount of money is worth you doing anything to anybody, especially a person that's not supposed to be touched. Little do you know. And one time I was at the door, and I heard them, and my mother was asking my brother, "Is he out there? Is he outside? Is he out there?" And even though you forgive them, they have to be held accountable for anything that they have set up against me. They have to be, and it's only right, because if not, then they're not going to get what it is that they need to learn. And that is, you can't do what you think you can do because you're prompted to, and you believe that you can. I don't care how powerful or what you line yourself up with. It don't matter what it is. And again, you be in a fraternity or sorority or whatever, you're not greater than the divine. You are not. I don't care if you're in the biggest church in the world. You are not greater than the divine. That is that. Now, you know, it's exactly. It's been brought to my attention, when I fixed their computers, that they was interested in the symbols of the owl, and you understand. So these are people that have taken a stance with um those people. Now we want to rebrand the word or the naming of gang stalking because it becomes redundant. And again, anybody and everybody can pick that terminology up and say it and sound like they're knowledgeable about it. In fact, there was one that says he's an expert in gang stalking because I've been in it 40 years and I can tell you more. Come on, dog. You if you're not, if you're not, one that is spiritually sound and morally erect, then you are not in a position to instruct or inform anybody, you know. But these are things that I experienced, firsthand account in the way that, people have been maneuvering and acquiring things that's been around me and being, what we want to say, sneaky and deceptive. They have been sneaky and trying to deceive people, and there's always this, um certain payout that comes along with, doing certain things. But what's common, you know, if you were offered 875 million to sell a family member, what are you doing, my brother Danny? So pick one out. Yep, I got about 80 of them you can take. Yes, have trouble picking just one. Depends where they're going. No. Good. Good, Jalil. Good, Jalil Pringle. Good. Good man. Or whoever. A lot of them. They're a package deal. Sell myself. Sell myself. You know, uncle. Are uncles included? If yes, then fine. Sell them to myself. Can I sell more than one? These people, these are what you would call demonic people. These are demons. That's why I had a conversation with, the person the other day, and I told him, witches had never been my problem. My problem always been people, and mostly the people that's been in the church. Mostly religious people. And Satanists. When I meet, people that claim to be Satanists, they are transparent. They are who they say they are. And not only that, but they're not normally mean and disgruntled, or, you know, um, trying to set traps for you. But then when you meet other people that come under the banner of, righteousness, or under a religion that's supposed to be about righteousness, these are the ones that are, scornful, spiteful, proud, arrogant, boastful. Um, they are the ones setting up traps for you. So again, my problems have never been witches. It's always been the people, because of they believe they have a power because of what they what they align themselves with. Oh, you in a gang? Oh, we the toughest gang in the world. So, they believe that they can beat you. You gotta bow down to us. Believe because they're more aggressive than you have to, bow, or you have to submit to them. You ain't submitting to nobody. And that's how it goes. The righteous don't submit to anything. That wouldn't be righteous. If it's wicked, we not submitting to it. Oh, you a bunch of y'all. Oh, y'all got guns. Ooh, I'm scared. That's not righteous. Fear doesn't reside in the righteous. And you know, this is what we acknowledge. But I've been made aware that, they've been, trying to set things up, and not only that, but mimic a lot of things that I do. You're one that speaks languages. Your brother tries to speak languages. um you're one that is very spiritually sound, and one that is in tune with certain things, and you you can't fabricate that. If that's not you, then that's simply not you. But if you're to be, um somebody that would be considered a good man made better, then you would have to be a righteous man made more righteous. But that's not you, because you don't know how to do that. And that's a lot of people's problem. you know they don't they don't realize how imperative the qualities of righteousness are. When you see the stars, above, you know, your boy head right here. Let me see if I could even pull it up for you, because you have to understand that. these stars, these are the stars of God. These are righteous qualities. These are righteous qualities. And as you can see, you're underneath them. Other people try to put themselves above these qualities. I don't got to deal with no patience. I don't have to deal with kindness. I don't have to deal with diligence. Charity, I ain't giving nobody nothing. Humility, people don't have to deal with humility. Temperance, chastity, they want to put themselves above this, but you have to put yourself beneath these things. These are virtues, heavenly virtues against demonic qualities, which is the seven deadly sins. These are what you have to be under that people want to be above. They want to put themselves above this. This is why you don't understand true symbolism of what this thing means. Why does he have these stars? Why are these stars considered righteous stars? Because these are corrective stars. These stars correct wickedness within people. And again, I don't see no religious people online giving anybody any kind of wisdom that's going to help them establish these qualities. Only thing I see is Hebrew Israelites and Christians bickering back and forth about nonsense. Oh, you're not real. You're not this. My tribe is that. You're this. But you're not giving people what they need to get. And that's the God honest truth. And until people understand the necessity of adhering to these particular stars and being beneath them, as opposed to, I don't need to deal with patience. I'm going to go out and do whatever I want to get what I need. And, somebody stated before that they they made a statement, and it was directed towards those people, that have set people up, to get what they get, especially a divine being. Like, how y'all gonna plan to take somebody divine out and reap the rewards of taking somebody out, but you never stop to ask God, what is my purpose? How can I get, this, that, and the third? How can I, put myself in alignment with righteousness to be one that's supposed to be a recipient of righteous things, good rewards, but no, I want to, set people up and take from them and steal and kill, you know. So when I've seen that, I shared it. And the people that I needed to see it, they seen it. And, you know, they needed to see it because, hold on, I know what y'all been planning, and I know what y'all signed yourself up for, you know, and a lot of people don't believe that, they can be set free from that. But who those that you are forgiven, if you are forgive them and you can set them free, that means from anything they can be free. And that's just the way it goes. If they don't understand that process, then they are reading the Bible all wrong. The Bible is something that they understand, but they lack the true understanding of it. And that's one thing that I see that they have, attempted on many occasions, but all the time that their plans normally fail. And to this day they may be persistent because, one, they believe that they're going to be millionaires. And what are you doing to be a millionaire or to obtain this million? And again, we do have, you know, here, you know, selling family members, to get a million. And this is only fishing out and weeding people out. And this is maybe how people become targets because they're on a sacrifice list because of their family members. You know, they're on people that get into people's inbox and, weasel themselves into gullible women's homes, and deceive them and, offer them um bribes, you know, offer them money for wickedness. And we have that here online. So what you see is the demon in humanity that has to be exercised. If not, it's going to be running amok. So one demon go into other demons and make more demons and multiply demons and make more demons and make more demons and make more demons and make more. So this is the way that, the works of the devil manifests itself in our reality. Our people become, you know, advocates, associates, and make partnership with the devil by agreeing to, demonic type things. Demonic type things is what we come into agreement with, But here we do have, to err is human, to forgive is divine, which was the statement that I believe somebody quoted back in the days. The difference between being human and being divine is knowing. You have to know the difference. You know what I mean? So with your knowledge, you get the wisdom and you get the understanding of it. But first you have to know it. What's the difference? You know, as humans make mistakes, God, which is divine, will forgive them. As humans make mistakes, the God inside of a divine being will forgive them. The God inside of you have to be triggered to forgive. If you're not a willing, forgiving person, then you have to question your quality of God inside of you or your divine quality inside of you. So, the humans are going to make mistakes because, this is an experience that we're living. We're not going to be perfect, nor are we going to, get it right the first time around. But because this is a learning process and they're throwing a lot of learning curves at you and throwing you off course of what you need to learn because of our belief in other things, that's the reason why humans aren't being able to get it. Understanding, it's themselves that's the problem, and look for others to point the finger at and justify their actions by demonizing the actions of others and don't look at the demon inside of themselves. So here we have, as humans make mistakes, other humans that are prone to mistakes will poke fun, ridicule, wage war, name call, and even mock them. But the divine will forgive them, for they know not what they do. They aren't aware, that these things that you're doing is demonic. Poking fun, ridicule, waging war, name calling, even mocking. So we do have um let's see if we can pull him up. Uh, Here we have, you know, Ti. These are world influencers that feed you, back and forth ism, name name calling, and 50 Cent is one that says that he's a Christian. However, he's been more than um a a, um a boastful person, a person that mocked people. He mocked Irv Gotti when he passed away, even though they had problems in the past, regardless of what, he still mocked him when he passed. Um, he's a mocker of people, and Ti is one that he doesn't believe in um Christianity or whatever. I don't know if he believed in God at all, but he don't believe in Christianity. He stated it before, but he's one with hell of influence. Excuse my usage. He has abundance of influence, and he can influence people to this is the way that we respond to a person that um pokes fun at me, we poke fun back, and we just get more aggressive. And then you had his son, this guy who mocked his deceased mother because he said something about his mother, and on make it the common reaction to humanity. This is the way we supposed to respond. Yeah, and F you and F you, and this is what people love because if you don't see it, it's the same way you see the who would sell a family member, you would see it down the line of humanity, and you know, and the thing about that is I met Tiny before. Tiny's a real good person. I met her when I was around about you know 16 or 17. I tried to kick it to her in the mall one time. We was in Lenox Mall, and when we went to Lenox Mall, uh, um, the people there, because I had gold teeth, and gold teeth in Atlanta is a big deal, to have it. So we used to go to the mall to get phone numbers, and they pointed her out. And your confidence level is up because before we even get to the mall, the people that you go to the mall with be like, that's my, I'm gonna say that's my brother. I that's my cousin. So when they go to a girl, they be like, you see him over there? That's my brother. Oh yeah, so let me get your number. How about such and such and such and such? You see that dude right there? That's my cousin. Oh, okay. So let me get your number. So that's what people used to do. This is not a staged thing. This is me giving you a little bit of history. So they pointed her out, and I went, and she had a baby stroller with her. She had two babies. I don't know if they were twins or not, but it was a double baby carriage. And I was walking around the mall with her, chilling, kicking it with her. We was in KB toy stores, and she wouldn't give me a number, but she had gave me like I was like, give me your autograph. So she had took off this piece of this matchbook, and gave me her autograph. But I do recall, kicking it with her being, a good person that wasn't, ew, you get away from me, one of them. But this is something that you have a little bit of history that you can relate to people with. But Ti and King, this is the big topic of discussion. They love drama. Demons love drama. They feed off drama. They feed off wrath. Pride and arrogance. Pride, and you get your boy Rick Ross. It's Christian as well. Rick Ross says he wants a T-shirt of 50 cents. You know, you see his son got on mocking 50 cents. You know what I mean? Um, Past or deceased mother by wearing this shirt. So this Rick Ross, who is he proclaims himself to be a Christian. 50 Cent claims to be one. You know what I mean? So we do know that these people aren't that. You know what I mean? If they was, that would be protecting them from that. This is the reason why people don't understand when they say that they have something as their personal savior. That means that this is something that's going to save me, from my sinful ways. This is what's going to save me. But we don't understand that. We simply lack that understanding. And that's just what it is. If people don't want to understand certain things, then we have your boy, ghetto politician, I guess he called urban politician, you know what I mean, that normally just comes on and just keeps the fuel going, and I'm pretty much sure you're going to have Hassan Campbell come online and talk about it, and all these other people talk about it because people love drama. They have to feed, the food of demons to demons, which is drama, which is pride, which is arrogance, which is greed, which is lust. This is the food of demons. They got to keep feeding you and feeding you and feeding you. So, you just wanted to point that out. But again, when we're talking about witches, here's your little thing about, King James. King James was the one that set that up for you. And again, he's not um, a righteous person. You know, and he was deeply obsessed with it. Deeply, deeply obsessed with it. So to this day, because you inherit this this thing, you inherit the whole, obsession with it. You don't just inherit something from a person and not acquire certain other things. So we do have an obsession with witchcraft and witches because of a person that was obsessed with it. And now to this day, we become little, King James. But that's just something that you really wanted to point out. But anywho, that's just what people want to do. These stars represent the keys to self control. Other than that, other things outside of this is going to control you. Get it? These represent self control. So if you're underneath these, you'll have self control. Everything outside of this will control you. So everything outside of these particular qualities will control you. And again, we don't have people on, the mass scale of these huge religions teaching you the importance of acquiring these qualities. And this is the reason why your demonic nature, your traits are going unaddressed, because there's no one that's in, these positions of giving them to you, not our celebrities, not no Cardi B, not no Nicki Minaj, not no Donald Trump, not no Hillary Clinton, not no Kamala Harris, not no Freemasons, not no Eastern Stars, not no Kappa, Delta, Alpha, Beta, Sigma, whatever. Not None of them are giving you these qualities that's going to help you have self-control. Nobody, nobody is coming with the stars, the the stars of righteousness. The seven stars of righteousness in their righteous right hand. Not one, no one. But when you do see, you know, me every time I show up, you see those seven stars, and that's what they signify. And when you're amongst yourself, we have, you know, we're it don't matter, as long as you're not you putting it out. It's what you put out that defiles you. So if you're putting, wickedness out, you're eating wickedness, but you're putting righteousness out, that's a different story. Like you can, watch these people go back and forth all day. You can watch the Epstein files all day. You can watch politicians argue all day. But the moment that you start, Trump, you become one that is defiled and defiling others by putting that out. you know so we have to cautious ourselves about what we're actually putting out into the world, because we're responsible for what we put out into the world. That's the reason why you're not so much of an advocate for you know music until you're you're certain that your music is well received, and it's um has some sort of righteous or positive undertone to it, because whenever I used to rap, whoever I went at and attacked got attacked. So if I ever wrote a rap about anybody, it was a rap. That's anybody that I ever spit a rhyme about, you know, or made a rap about or went at in any kind of way, they got, they got attacked, like literally. Not like physically attacked, but people went after them, after them in the sense of tearing them down because they was meant to be tore down. Maybe they did something, you know, um, wicked, like Rick Ross. When I first came out, I went at Rick Ross because Rick Ross was um, um, a corrections officer. And then he came out promoting drugs and violence and big kingpin type stuff and street type stuff, and he knew the effects of that lifestyle because he was in prison with people that was in prison. So that was unjust of him to be adverse of who he was, and that was one of the people that I went at. And then soon after that, the people went at Rick Ross. I spoke about Puff Daddy, you know 13 years ago, about what his involvement in certain people's lives and how everybody's lives end up being detrimental. you know it end up being real detrimental. And you see, he recently got attacked. You don't really want this for people, but some people got to be held accountable for certain things. I said he got shine deported. um he was the reason behind what happened to Big, and not like he was the sole purpose, like the sole reason, but he's involved in it. You have to be held accountable for the role that you play in people's lives and their demise and stuff like that. So that's one thing that you do know, that everybody that you win at in a rhyme or in when you used to rap, they normally, you know, they normally some sort of attention was brought to them. Not that you're um the greatest um person that ever, but just that this is what normally happens. So I'm cautious about the energy and the information or the type of stuff that I put out into the world. So you do have a lot of um, music that you put out in the past that you disassociate yourself with now, and you wouldn't be the promoter of that. You won't come on my page and now share that type of stuff and be like, oh, but like I said, if I came out today with a wicked song promoting drug selling and um gun usage and stuff like that, and violence against the next person and stuff like that, then that would make you kind of, not even kind of, that would make you hypocritical because you took a stance of righteousness. And that's one thing that I shared Master P's um comment, that he said that he's a man of God, and then a few years after that, after he did his versus battle with Cash Money, now he started to come out with more music to grasp the to captivate the audience, and by doing so, he started to talk about keys this and key drugs in the car and stuff like that. So that's adverse to being a man of God. That's why I tell you there's a big difference between man and women in God and children of God. Children is always going to be submissive to God, and men and women of God is going to believe that they have the power and authority to speak on behalf of God. Like King James, he would be considered a man of God because he believed that he had the authority of God, because they established a religion and put themselves above the stars of God, put themselves above this. I mean, put themselves above this, you know. So, you know, but back to, family, you know, one thing that you do is you listen for not what's being said, but what's not being said. So when I'm amongst like my mother and she's on the phone with my other brother who I don't talk to at all, who I don't speak to at all, and it's not on my behalf. I'm the youngest of three siblings, and you would always check on your younger brother because he's the most vulnerable in the world, especially when you know that he has a certain um quality to himself. Like he's very empathetic and he's vulnerable to certain attacks, and you would know that. But as these being my older brothers, they don't check on me, you know, and you're you're easily accessible, you know. Well, I did block them on all my social media accounts, but I stay right around the corner from my mother. And I blocked them on every last social media that I'm on. They are not in my circle, from my mother to my brothers. And, again, they got to my daughter, my nephews, and nieces. So it's a family affair when it comes to them and their involvement in um, their association with those people. You know, they are associated with those people. Again, it's family oriented, when it comes to their association with Freemasons and Eastern Stars, because one of the girls that my brother dated was an Eastern Star, and he knew about it, and he knew like, yo. And I told him like, yo, son, because I always thought he was righteous because, at one point in time he was an honest person, but I'm not gonna say jokes on me, but jokes on me. He's one of them, you know. He's one of them. And my mother was in a bad spot a couple of weeks ago. I don't know whether that was staged or what, to try to throw you off, but she was kind of in a bad spot, and she was trying to get out of here. Like she was saying that her insurance policies is over here, and if anything happens, just let her know, like, son, you're not getting out of here that easy. You know what I mean? But um, I overheard her tell him that he's going to be um, the beneficiary, of her policy. But I really don't care. Me personally, I don't care nothing about receiving any kind of reward. However, those people should because of all their attempts. I'm talking about Freemasons and the CIA and the government or whoever they is, for all their attempts. They owe some people a large payout, especially when they want to keep people or shut people up. They owe people, you know, and that's just what it is. They owe people, they owe me for what they've been trying to do to me, and they have to stand you know stand accountable for it, and you know that's just what it is. They have to, they have to, because they can't escape judgment just because they're family, and my family have, you know, they always been weird. Like we never drunk after each other or ate after each other. Like if I took a bite out of something, they wouldn't touch it. If they took a bite out of something, I wouldn't touch it. But strangers, I don't, ate and drunk after strangers though. But my family, we always knew like, you know, something is, different, you know, and that's the only way that I can explain it. I belong to God. I don't know who they belong to. If they're adverse to me, and they're trying to set me up, and they're trying to, to capitalize or gain off of somebody's demise, I don't know who they with. You know what I mean? But it's definitely not a God, a righteous God, the one that, seek God in his righteousness. That ain't righteous. I mean, that is not the righteousness of God to set people up. Again, you care about certain things that you're not supposed to care about. First, seek God and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. You know what I mean? Not, join this cult, you know, sign up, you know, put one of your family members down and receive $1 million. Receive 875 million bucks. That's not the righteousness of God. That's the wickedness of the devil for greed, opportunity, and success, and fame, and fortune. You know, things that the righteous would deny. But what the stars represent, the keys to self-control, the 7 stars of righteousness. To acquire them, start with patience. These are the spirits that will protect you from other spirits. If you do not know you are in war, how do you expect to win? With money? That may come along with the spirit meant to destroy you, namely greed, envy, and vanity, which will control you. When a person's vanity is at stake, you can get them to do whatever you want. So when you threaten a person's vanity, now their back is up against the wall. Now, what do you want me to do? You're messing with my beauty. Well, you know what you have to do to maintain that beauty. Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't take my beauty away. You don't take me. Oh no, I'm vain. I don't want you to look at me without this on. Oh, please don't. No, I don't. These are not bootlegs. No, they're real. When a person's vanity is at stake, you can get them to do whatever you want them to do. So, you know, you know, you know, you know. So, yeah, I just felt like touching on that because it was brought to my attention that even though we forgive, people still shouldn't have access to you, nor should they not be held accountable, and escape judgment for their actions. So should my family, you know, if indeed, not even if indeed, because they are indeed involved with the wicked, should they be brought to judgment? Should judgment be, on them? Of course, divine judgment should be on them because first and foremost, they planned certain things out, you know, and it was a conscious decision, whether they know, the end result or not. But it was a conscious decision. So anybody that make a conscious decision, like we have with these people here, you know, with these people that here, these people make conscious decisions. The question is posed. The question is posed here. There's people that can, yes, absolutely, yes. Does that include in-laws? They might even pay more for me to take them back. I am thinking of a particular meal. Would that count? Because that would absolutely be yes. Can I sell my husband? Do I get to choose? These are people that's making conscious decisions to come into agreement with something wicked, you know? So these are, fishers of souls. And there's people that are looking for vulnerable people. And, you know, maybe you're not just a TI, maybe you're a CI, a SI, maybe you're a BI, maybe you're a betrayed individual, maybe you're a sacrifice individual, maybe you're not just one that's being targeted, maybe you're one that, people, you know, added to a list. Like Tupac said, write your name on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? Now your family is gone. Don't perpetrate like you can handle my team. Merciless amount attacker take a man nigga scheme. Or even when I said in How did love become a human sickness? It's not Jehovah, it's Judas' witness. I witnessed Judas pursue his business by crossing you and putting you on hit list. Family members moving worse than Hitler. They get you hit and then they post your pictures. For that paper boy, they post to get you. For money, they'll get you hit. And then they'll go on Facebook and post your pictures with RIP and all that stuff on it. You know what I mean? But behind the scene, they are the ones that actually took pays to, knock you off. Just like Judas and the Black Messiah. What was his payout? He got a gas station and he got all sorts of um um pays for that. So this is what we're pointing out, with demonic qualities of people. You know what I mean? Demonic vices. You know, demonic vices, demonic traits can refer to characteristics associated with both psychological profiles of individuals and traditional beliefs about demons in folklore and religion. Psychological perspective. In modern psychology, the term demonic personality is often used metaphorically to describe individuals who exhibit certain harmful traits. These traits may include the lack of empathy. You can't have empathy for people when you sign up to, you know, put them on a particular list. And individuals with demonic traits often show a profound inability to understand or care about the feelings of others. They may manipulate situations to their advantage without regard for the emotional impact on others. Master manipulation. Master Masons use master manipulation. Masonic manipulation is spread across all nations in the world. And that's master manipulation. Such individuals are skilled at reading people and situations, using this insight to exploit and control rather than to connect or empathize. Dark core personality traits. These concepts encompasses a range of negative traits, including narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, which can lead to moral reprehensible behaviors when unchecked. That's just the way it is. Evil and unclean spirits. In many religious texts, demons are described as malevolent beings that seek to mislead and harm humans. Again, they mislead and harm humans. Why? Because they don't teach humans what need to be taught. The virtues as opposed to the sins. They'll teach you all about their religion. They'll teach you all about the book. They'll teach you all about the book. They won't tell you, to get the understanding of, the qualities and the righteousness of God and how to get the righteousness of God. The righteousness of God ain't just, knowing certain things, it's acquiring certain things. You know what I mean? And those are those qualities. That's the righteousness of God. It's corrective. Those are corrective traits, you know. So physical and emotional they are often referred to as unclean spirits and are believed to tempt individuals into sin. You know what I mean? Wrath tempts you into sin. Lust tempts you into sin. Greed tempts you into sin. All these things tempt you, keep tempting you. Envy tempts you into sin. Need, gluttony tempts you into sin. Being gluttonous is going to keep tempting you into sin and sin and sin and sin and sin and sin and sin. So they are unclean spirits. That's what they are. So physical and emotional symptoms. Individuals influenced by demonic forces may exhibit unusual behaviors such as extreme strength, self-harm, or erratic actions. These manifestations are often seen as signs of demonic influence. Deceptive nature. Demons are often characterized by their ability to deceive and promote false doctrines, leading individuals away from truth and righteousness. So they'll concoct or create false doctrines to lead you away from truth and righteousness. Everything other than truth and righteousness is something that's, constructed and created by demons to keep you away from it. We spoke about that in the movie The Lost Symbol, where they indicated that a lot of things was put in a deceptive way to keep you away from the truth, to make you believe that you had the truth, when in all actuality you're over here, the truth is over there. You already have the truth. They think they got the truth. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that we can say about demonic truths. I mean, about demonic qualities, which become angelic virtues and demonic vices. Angelic virtues, or these are just, terminologies that's being used when referring to it. But yeah. But, we have to be mindful of that, you know. So again, when we have, this being shown, forgiveness, yes. Forgiveness, yes. It's always good to forgive. You forgive so that um, grudges and resentment and hostility and the necessity of revenge isn't weighing you down, because these become compelling and driving forces of a person's actions and the reason why they may do things out of emotions. When we had people discussing topics with Trump online. Um, one of my associates, like I showed you before, like he's just been weird. Like everything
they have the knowledge of Christ.
They have the knowledge, they don't have the spirit of Christ. You need the spirit of Christ. But only thing that they were saying was that they they're more hanging on to what's being said and feeding off of it, and then regurgitating it back online and making uh, um, conversations about it. So one thing that was stated was that um, Trump. They said that Trump, because he was involved with the Epstein files, that anybody that support Trump, I don't trust them around my kids. So the guy had responded that he's a Trump supporter, and if I was to see you in public, I know you wouldn't say that. Anybody that say that type of stuff to me is going to get physical. These are people that are led with emotion. I mean, led by wrath. You know what I mean? You have to have patience in order to understand that you can't lash out at a person because of what they said. You know what I mean? You can't be the one that take words and things like that, insults, and become physical about it, because you lack the patience to understand that that person who made me lash out at him had more control over me than I did. you know so we wanted to share that. And that's just something that needed to be shared. But family members, you have to be mindful of what kind of things they sign up for. And they all sign up for it, because I've seen in my circle, I've seen people lose their um a family member, and years later they end up getting houses. Jersey ain't no place where you could just buy a house, especially when you're not known for working. You know, especially when you're not known for being one that works. And then these people used to come to my studio, and then you see them years later, and they got these tattoos, the Illuminati tattoos on them. I mean, and that you gotta understand. I don't, I don't, you, like I said, I don't, I don't bite my tongue. Whatever's being said, it has to be said, and we don't run and we don't hide from, anything, and we don't cut corners, nor do we sugarcoat the truth. But they did have those signs and those symbols on them. And then, some of their family members end up, passing away, and, them being online and, showing certain things, and now they are recipients of homes and, houses and stuff like that. But, you know, these things have to be, brought out of the shadows and brought into the light. And this is the one thing that, you're um, able to do. Again, what good is being a child of God if you're not going to be one that destroys the works of the devil? And you're not going to even confront it, but you want to talk about what's common. And again, how much Epstein stuff is being said, and the moment that it stopped being talked about, no one's going to talk about it. How much, how how long can we talk about um, the 50 Cent and T.I. beef? How long can we talk about that? Then after we're done talking about that, is it peace after that? No, it's going to be the next topic of discussion that has more drama, that fuels more um, discussion. Because again, people love drama. They love drama because they have demonic qualities and a demonic nature. So, with that being said, witches and warlocks, I've never, they don't, I don't, they ain't never did nothing to me. You know, people have, people, people. You know what I mean? People have. You know, so we should make that understanding understood, that the only demons you're going to see is you if you look in the mirror, if you have a demonic quality in you, whether that's lust, whether that's greed, whether that's the inability to be patient and have more wrath than patience, whether that's anything, whether you're a rabble rouser, or one that provokes violence, or one that shares violence, or one that shares stuff that enrage people, like this back and forth racism and back and forth religion versus religion, or back and forth political party versus political party. You're one that spreads wrath, and you become known as a demon. So you got to check yourself. Check yourself, Q.